the working class rising up. This is the ruling class punching down.
My day is bigger than your day.
First rule of gladiator school, bro. Don't punch down.
Charging into a goblin. Hail Trump!
The threat from outside forces is far less sinister, dangerous, and grave than the threat from within.
Control your own body.
We will root out the communists, Marxists, fascists, and the radical left thugs that live like vermin within the confines of our country.
We can fight the entire grinding system. Nobody can. But together, everybody can.
I did nothing wrong.
Welcome to the Did Nothing Wrong podcast, where we cut through the noise and help you make sense of the chaotic information space around us. I'm Griff Somke. With me today is Karl Folk.
Oh my God.
Where's the vehicular traffic board? You guys look alive and terrible.
So there's been a high-profile defection in the culture war. It appears that noted MAGA symbol Pepe the Frog has switched sides and is now assisting the brave citizens of Portland, Oregon, as they resist the occupation forces from the east. Now, I don't want to belabor this point, but this is a big deal. You probably all remember 2016, right? So if somebody who has the stature that 2016 Pepe does comes over to our side, I think that's a massive win. And it says a little something about where the mandate of heaven, if you believe in that, is right now. What do you think?
I think it's true. And I think, what we're seeing is an adaptation, right? Like the 2016 protests and the 2020 protests were different. Like 2016 was much more, I would say, kind of institutional style response, right? And like some of the protests were much more kind of top-down organized and larger.
Sure,
in 2020, we saw the shift again, where it went from like these huge organized things to the autonomous actions that happened here in Minneapolis and then everywhere else all summer. And now what we're seeing is kind of another redefinition, right? And like ultimately, I think we're seeing the embrace of a couple really interesting things. One is absurdist kind of free for all mentality, which is really, really important in this moment. But the other thing we're seeing is people starting to understand that like these kind of protests are different than what we saw in 20 for sure, because they are actually allowing for a different kind of pushback that's much more, I think, pointed. And people have understood that now, like, it's about the image of who's coming against the population in part, but also it's, looking at it and saying, okay, well, the president's doing something absurd and deeply problematic, and we can out absurd them. And in doing so, it kind of shows that this is farce, right? Like it really does help in the messaging sense to have that kind of imagery starting to come out. I mean, yesterday I was watching for a while in the evening on a live stream that I follow. And, now it's not just frogs, it's
My Little Pony characters, and Care Bears,
unicorns. And that's
brilliant.
That's the whole thing, right? Like this works in a couple ways. It works to outline the absurdity of it from the Republican side, coming in to invade states and do martial law and police state stuff.
You get a video of Kristi Noem on the top of a building looking out at like it's Fallujah, and there's one person in a sad looking Temu chicken outfit down there on the bottom protesting. It's Sarah Jong wrote a great piece about this. I think it's in The Verge. I'll link it on the show notes. And she's kind of talking about how there's like basically three modes of political expression right now. There's normal dialogue.
Yep.
There's aura farming, which the Trump administration is really engaged in right now. They're putting videos out. They're doing the things that make their fans go, yeah, right on, Team MAGA.
Yep.
And then there's shit posting.
Yeah.
And the frog is shit posting.
Yeah.
It's like you can beat normal political discourse with auraforming, but you can also beat auraforming with shit posting.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating article.
This is the bigger extension of kind of the vibes economy thing, right? That we saw in 2016 and then in 20, and we've kind of seen expressed in different ways ever since. And this whole idea, you know, of control is kind of farcical. So the way that you deal with knowing that you don't really have control of much is to, do these things, right? And like Trump and them, their propaganda right now is so heavy-handed. They are really looking to farm a specific section of the base, not even just the base in general. It's a really specific white supremacist fashion part. But on the other side of that, like, they're used to controlling kind of the mimetic magic wand, for lack of a better term. And in this case, like, they don't have the same discipline they once did, right? And so what we've seen is things like this defection, where high level kind of defections in how people are talking about the protests because of that. You know, we're starting to see the other side of that, which is this. And I think it's going to be increasingly important for that absurdity to kind of take a front seat, right? Like, it works really well.
Oh yeah. It's great.
It works very well in a messaging sense, and it really confounds the narrative being put out by the state. And
it escalates things to just an absurd level, to the point where, like, we're all worried that they're going to clamp down. Every one of us is worried that they're going to clamp down, that come tomorrow, they're going to declare martial law, the Insurrection Act, and roll the tanks. And I don't think that's an entirely unfounded worry at this point. I think that's definitely something that is slightly more likely than it has been in years. But I also think the idea of, you have this ridiculous response to it. If they're going to do that, let's make them arrest a bunch of inflatable frog costumes.
Right.
And, you know, good luck getting your aura farmed out of that. Good luck making anything that doesn't make you look ridiculous.
Well, and that's just it, right? Like, they're looking to turn this into content as much as do the actual terror. So, like, for them, if you can deprive them of the content, the terror doesn't work as well, ironically. And this kind of neutralizes that. And it also, you know, Trump and the fascists don't need pretext to invoke the Insurrection Act. As much as I think a lot of us want to believe that they do, they don't. So if they're going to, they will. But it makes their case much harder if they're going to sell that option to the public, right? When there's this absurdist element that is really the driving force. And it makes it much harder to solidify opinions against that movement if on its face, every time they're seeing it, it's a small demonstration, for one, because Kristi Noem and them don't understand how this works. But more importantly, those small crowds are really just like dudes shitposting, as Michael says, but in physical form. That's really hard to combat, and it doesn't allow you to sell your narrative. It's a very good tactic, and it's one that's working really well in concert with other things people are doing in other places.
Right. And the other reason I really, really like this tactic is because it plays to the strengths of the weaker side. And like it or not, that's what we are at this point. It plays to moral outrage on one level. It plays to making it completely absurd to sell Portland, Oregon as a place under occupation, or a place under, you know, martial law. And it keeps us alive.
Yeah.
It makes for really terrible content. I mean, we'll help you make content. We just don't want to promise you it'll be content you want to air, because I don't think you'll want to share this. It also helps keep our people from ending up in trouble that's not real easy to get out of.
Yeah. No, I mean, it works on a bunch of levels, right? Like, it protects the person inside the suit from being captured digitally.
Right.
you know, it keeps them from being exposed via a right-wing live streamer.
Right.
There are a huge
And it
amount
provides
of
the
bonus.
possibility for an I am Spartacus moment here.
Yeah.
Where we can just, I mean, I don't want to belabor this point, but those costumes are $22, and I hate to tell you to buy anything off Temu, but they're right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, and
You can buy a lot of frog costumes.
well, and that's just it, right? Like, you know,
Mhm.
building a group signifier, which is what Pepe was, right? For the
Uh-huh.
for the far right. That takes some work. Capturing
Yeah.
one though, and then being able to use it to your ends is a pretty
Uh-huh.
smart move. And
Pretty slick trick.
and realistically, like the more that this happens, people will see other places to do it with other things. And that's kind of the thing, right? Like meme magic isn't real, but
No.
the part of it that is for a lot of people it on like they can see something they wouldn't have seen before in a new way, and that allows them then to do that their own way and kind of keep transmitting that thing forward.
Right.
And
And I've read some very original research recently about this.
Yeah.
And one of the points that said researcher makes is that a meme, when done well, acts like a hinge
yeah,
into a different way of looking at things.
exactly.
It's like a liminal point that could go a whole bunch of different ways when you see it. They're aware of this.
Right.
They know. Trust me. At least some people do.
Yeah, no, the people who do definitely know, right? And like
Uh-huh.
that kind of reframing device and like ability to take really complex topics and frame it down to what most people can deal with is arguably what we are really good at, right? Like the idea of kind of cognitive gadgets and things like that that we use to simplify tasks. Memes are just one more of those, right? And so personifying memes and memifying kind of resistance to fascism and this stuff and reclaiming some of that space is ultimately more important, I think, than any of us realize right now. I think we're going to see a lot more come out of this because there's been so much power kind of in these symbols, right? And we're building them. So it's really, I mean, I think this is kind of an interesting point too for other things to get tested out, right?
Oh, yeah.
If we understand that there's an absurdist portion of this and that there's also a portion where it's literally about the data you're transmitting, not the thing that other people might expect from it.
Right.
That's an incredibly powerful place to be. And the fact that the right used it so adeptly for so long, but now can't seem to make hay out of this, even with the entirety of the state apparatus behind them, is really interesting for that reason, right? Like,
it's almost like the frog mattered more than they want to admit.
well, and it's almost like too they didn't want to talk about the fact that this was a fluke in some ways for them, that they
Oh, yeah.
stumbled
Big
into
time.
this thing versus
Big
having
time.
some playbook for it, right? Like they wrote some playbooks for themselves after figuring it out, but they didn't understand or know it really was a thing until they did it themselves, right? Like
They did a lot more of this on the fly than people realize.
exactly.
They really did. Pretty amazing combination of things that had to happen to get us to this place.
Well,
And
it's
they
just,
did.
yeah, it's a lot of compounding effects, right? And people who never came in contact and they're differing their specific part relayed off of something else that someone else in some other group or whatever was doing.
Right.
And it's, you know, it's a network effect in some ways and a compounded network effect versus the, you know, versus having some like, you know, mastermind ability to like hack people's brains. And I think that the more that people realize that, right, that this was a fluke, but also that it's a repeatable fluke if we want to.
At which point it is no longer a fluke, it is a technique.
It's a technique, right? And that repeatable, that understanding can be applied to anything in this world of digital kind of existence is really, really an important thing, I think, for anyone to really kind of come to terms with, but more importantly for the resistance to fascism side to understand that like the signifier is the message in a lot of cases, right? Like now the image is the thing, but it's also a whole bunch of other contexts that we've built into it. And those those kind of hinges and those kind of like inflection points for ability to reframe, that'll do more than any political ad or conversation from an elected leader ever could. And we've seen that, right? Like
Yes, we have.
that's why Trump's in office for the second time, is because that works. And so if we can
Yeah.
figure out, and people do start to really, embrace this shitpost aura farming vibe economy for resistance to fascism, that's a huge step forward.
And for the record, I wish we could go back to normal politics where we didn't do this kind of shit as well.
I think we all
I don't
do.
think this is a great way to run a country, not at all. I think this is a really terrible way to run a political discourse, honestly. But this is where we are.
Yep.
And it's always seemed to me like I don't necessarily want to give up the ability to do something that's being done to me.
Right.
Maybe that does not make me a very good person. I don't know.
I mean, unilaterally disarming is a poor choice when the other side is waging war against you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a bad idea, but this is what we seem to some extent to have chosen in this particular arena. And I think it's good to see people starting to realize that you can push back in a way that takes a previously thought out idea, something that had been done before, and repurposes it.
Absolutely.
And it can be even more effective. Like what they're doing in Chicago right now. Back it up just a little bit. In Spokane, Washington, Matt Shea and his church have been doing what they call Mass at Planned Parenthood.
Yep.
Where they go up to the Planned Parenthood location on Division Street in Spokane, Washington. It was called Division when I moved. I know it's called something else on the other side now. Don't at me. But it's true, man. It's Division for 20 something fucking years. Anyway, so what they would do is they would celebrate church on the sidewalk outside Planned Parenthood.
Yep.
Right. And it made for content for them. And it made for this whole visual of like, we're praying for the babies and all this other stuff that they do. Well, somebody in Chicago has started celebrating Mass on the sidewalk outside the ICE facility.
Yep.
And that is just an absolute genius tactic, because they're trying to bring in the Catholic sacrament of communion to the detainees. And since ICE is going after a lot of Latino folks, it's a safe bet to bet you that at least some of them are probably Catholic.
Yep.
And some of them would probably appreciate the idea of being able to celebrate the sacrament of their religion, which they are now being denied by the people who are always on about how religious freedom is constantly being shit on in this country. Yet when it's trying to bring a little religious freedom to people who aren't white, this becomes a huge problem.
Yeah.
And I think that visually that's pretty powerful to have like the idea that we're going to try and help people who have been unjustly detained in a large number of cases practice their faith, and then the Trumpers just don't let them do it.
Well, and that's
the ICE people.
It's such a massive
I know
use of that power,
and it just
like,
reveals the hypocrisy at the core of all of this. And the more of that kind of stuff we can do, I think the better we are.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and I think that that's the thing, right? Like, we're starting to see, I think, people grapple with the new reality, as hard as that is, and as kind of grotesque and sad as this new world is for the moment. And from that, kind of sober analysis and understanding, we're starting to see things like that, which are incredibly powerful. That kind of iconography and symbology, again, it's incredibly powerful. It transmits itself once it gets into the population, because it is itself message, right?
And it's the kind of thing that you can like use to talk to them. I mean, I was raised Catholic. I get what this means.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I would personally like to have that conversation with somebody like a Nick Fuentes, who claims to be a trad Catholic. Do these people have the right to receive communion?
Right.
In your mind?
Exactly.
Why not? Why not? Why is your faith only for you and the people who look like you?
Oh, exactly. I mean, exactly.
That's not how it works.
And I think this is one of those interesting moments where as people grapple with this more and those questions get asked, it provides a lot of points to do more of this, right? And to
Right.
kind of stack onto the thing that's already happening, which is incredibly powerful and is opening doors to that conversation. Exactly. Because those, you know, to kind of quote that article from earlier, those hinges, right? Like
Yeah.
those change someone's perception almost immediately.
Yeah.
And what we've seen, you know, there's good data floating around that shows that like that kind of self persuasion is much
Oh,
more
yeah.
powerful than anything, you know, Trump is telling people, you know, or that they're doing. Part of the Trump and Republican power move online was getting people to convince themselves that they've made the decisions that Trump and the Republicans had made for them, right? And that's
Yeah.
again
Yeah.
kind of another way that this can reclaim some of this power in this space, kind of in this virtual space, is to kind of give people the option to think themselves out of an old frame and into a new one.
Right. And that's so valuable because everything that comes along after that new frame is simply just playing catch up.
Yeah.
You are at that point arguing with stuff that has been pretty much decided for that person. That initial first response is so powerful that it's very much a sense of you're playing catch up. You're trying to fix somebody's initial first response to something. And
well, that anchor bias is tough, right?
tough.
Like, and the Republicans have known that for a long time. If they can get ahead of it, they can get people to just say, oh, well, that was Antifa, or oh, that was this, or that was that. And what, you know, we're starting to see is that anchor bias is strong, but it's not totally immovable. And for a lot of people, as things get more hectic and more unpredictable, they're starting to break free from some of those anchoring spots that have been kind of hammered into the ground over the last 25 years by the Republicans. That gives huge room to this kind of thing and this, you know, kind of just absolute, you know, kind of satirical view of this, right? Like the image of ICE nailing a bunch of dudes in frog uniforms is a really tough thing to sell to people who have been watching on Fox News, like replays of other countries saying it's the US. And that's the part where those two things don't connect. And we've even heard, you know, kind of seen cracks in this at the highest levels. You know, when Trump, what was that, a week ago now or 2 weeks ago, said, you know, well, they're showing me these videos. It's a war zone. Why doesn't reality and this mash up? I think we're starting to see glimmers of that, right? Like the Republican unreality state's incredibly powerful and it's incredibly dangerous. But it's also not anchoring people in like it once was because of this absurd pushback.
Because the people on the other side have made things so absurd that they would have to basically like rent their own studio and pretend it's Portland at this point in order to get the content they want.
They would need to do a full wag the dog, right? Like they would have to literally manufacture a war. And
and
that's,
you know, I mean,
tough.
Jesse Waters knows a guy.
Yes.
Jesse Waters knows a guy who'd be real good for your lead because he's been ex-member of Antifa. He's been an ex-member of the Mexican Mafia.
Yeah.
He's been an ex-member of, you know, God knows what all. And he's done this bit under a mask on Jesse Waters' program at least a few times now. And now everybody's kind of looking back and it's like, wait a minute, who is this guy? What's his real deal?
It's unbelievable, right? Like again, if the stakes weren't so high, this would be one of the master classes in like satirizing what the news used to be, doing it the most cynical way possible and the most destructive way possible. Now it's just so fucking dangerous. That's a hard, you know, kind of conversation, but it's unbelievable, right? Like Waters For a guy with a lot of flaws.
You know he's one of Waters' drinking buddies.
Oh,
You know
it's his
this
contractor.
dude is.
It's his contractor. It's his basement guy, right? Like this guy is his basement guy, his tile dude. And like it's unbelievable, seeing how they're trying to manufacture this whole narrative of like war and insurrection and all this shit. And Fox News decides to pull out like quote Eric, and
Eric.
Eric. It's one of those things like you guys might have lost the ability to do this in a way that's plausibly deniable now. And like,
yeah,
it's really interesting to see all of that at the same time that we're seeing this other thing. And then you juxtapose that with these huge protests that are going to be, theoretically coming up on the 18th. This is a very interesting place to be, because I would expect that these No Kings rallies are going to pull tons of people, millions of people, as the last ones did. And there are going to be a lot of frog outfits. There are going to be a lot of absurdist outfits. And that, for them to spin up this narrative, because they're scared shitless of No Kings, I think is a good way to read this. Mike Johnson's out here saying that it's
No Kings are anti-American terrorists.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, that's
just funny. It's like you're dealing with the absolute most milquetoast end of all of this. You're un-American terrorists.
Yeah,
buddy. No problem.
It's very interesting seeing that they've rolled out that messaging alongside this Antifa, like Jesse Waters thing, and that they're doing it now a full 7 days out.
And then they had that ridiculous summit about this when they were declaring, they brought Jack Posobiec and Andy Ngo out to this summit to talk about the threat of Antifa. And here's Donald Trump, running the whole thing. It's like, this is fucking ridiculous. Jack Posobiec, like the guy who wrote a book that fillets Pinochet and Franco, the guy who has walked the content line of is he a Nazi? Is he not a Nazi? Mr. 1488, Mr.
He's let's just be very clear. He's a fucking Nazi. And like Jack P, there are very few guys within this whole ecosystem that actually should be concerning at a level of like, if we had a functional government, they would probably be looked at as a terror figure. But like Jack is a scary guy.
Somebody should take a microscope to his finances. Somebody should absolutely take a microscope to that guy's finances and see if any of it is coming from a hostile foreign power.
I
would like to know the answer to that question.
Legitimately, it's a question I've had for years.
For the sake of not being actionable, nowhere in this statement do I say, I think he is. I am saying, I think someone should go look real hard with a rubber glove.
It's a question, legitimately though. And like, it's a question we've had for years, right? In the research community, he's kind of stood out even amongst a whole crowd of some of the worst people you'll ever hear of, and hope most people never have to.
Right.
But, for him to be holding a round table based on a neo-Nazi understanding of anti-fascism, and pretty much laying it out, right? Like, it's pretty ballsy to say that they've been a terrorist threat since Weimar Germany. Like that.
I know. And especially to mention Weimar, that's kind of a tell. You're right. It's like, what were the anti-fascists in Weimar Germany opposed to, Jack?
Well,
what were they opposed to?
Well, and why were they formed there? Right? So like,
what was the point of all of this?
I mean, Jack's a dangerous guy. Andy, God bless him, he has been different since he got milkshake, but it's not because of concrete.
I know. And head injuries, man. They're terrible.
Yeah, I don't.
It's like we should take up a collection for him or something. I don't know. Do something for him.
I don't know if it was the milkshake that did him in or the dildo to the head, but whichever one did it.
That's 6 of one, half a dozen of another in his case. Man. Yeah. He's just not, he's not the same guy. You're right. No. He's just lost a little thing on the fastball.
I mean, his accent changes faster now. It's crazy.
Isn't that weird that like sometimes head injuries can cause you to have a different accent?
Yeah, a fake British
The
accent.
human
It's
brain,
crazy.
man, that's a fascinating place.
I'm just saying, sometimes you get a knock on the head, you get special powers. It happens all the time. Read a comic book, okay?
It's
It's
true.
really a
It's true. I mean, this is
terrible place to be with this guy.
it's unbelievably true. And I mean, you look at that room though. So you have Andy No, Jack P, and for anyone who's been in the research community at all or been around anti-fascist kind of causes at all, know Andy is a prime offender. But you have
Mhm.
Jack, you have Andy, you have Christy Nome, you got Donnie Walnuts, and then you've got people like Brandy Cruz, you've got Nick
Mhm.
Surter, who had been
John
previously
Cho.
arrested
Some
at
of our
ICE
local
in
people
Portland
from
for
Seattle who
agitating.
like are supposed to be Antifa experts.
Yep. And it's really unbelievable that they got most of the Sturm Abteilung's high command to show up and be like, the people opposing us are dangerous, which is crazy, but also totally in line with how this works, right? And like, I think, this anti-Antifa thing, ironically, I think has really solidified what this is for a lot of people in a way that they weren't expecting.
Right.
The response has been so resoundingly like, yeah, you're supposed to be anti-fascist. It's kind of interesting. There's been some
Right.
institutional collapse, obviously, on this at different stages, but
Different levels.
most
But
people.
one thing I do like is that I haven't seen a whole lot of the establishment Democrats taking that bait. I haven't seen them like getting into it and debating them on that frame
Oh no,
and saying, no, we're not. It's like they're just moving on past that one because it's ridiculous and it's
this
stupid.
is one
We're not
of
doing
the
this.
ones that's kind of awesome because you can just walk past it, and the more they say it, the more actually
Mhm.
problematic it gets for them versus the
Right.
opposition. Because at a certain point, um, because anti-fascism is it's an ideology, not a group. Because it's not, there's nothing there beyond people who
Mhm.
believe that you should be against fascism.
There's no national headquarters. There's no national leader. It's like you see something in your community you don't like and you figure out a way to do something about it. That's all it is.
Well, that's
Nobody takes, I mean, and I've said this a bunch and I'll say it again.
Yeah.
The reason they think this on some level is because that's how they work.
Yeah.
If you have a right-wing organization with 3 members, each one of them has a title. You have
Yeah.
a president, a vice president, and a sergeant at arms.
Or-
Okay. Because they are order and structure freaks, and that's what they want.
Well, it's
Everybody has a title.
It's all about
So,
the hierarchy of
yeah,
organization for them, right? So
they look at everything that same way and think, oh, wow, this must look exactly like, how we do it.
yeah.
There must be a leader. They must have meetings. They must collect dues. They must have somebody grifting on merchandise.
Well, when your only
there's none of
reference to
that.
organizing is the Klan, everything looks like the Klan.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
that's the thing, right? Like the conservatives of this country are incredibly adept at organizing. It's just it happens to be that, like you said, it's a hierarchical organization, like the Klan
Mhm.
or the church. And
Exactly.
this looks like neither of those, right? Because it's an ideology,
Mhm.
because it's a frame of reference, and it's a belief structure, nothing more. And
Mhm.
they're looking for amorphous floating signifiers to say, oh, well, this person's this thing, or these people are. And, I think this might be one of those times with the Republicans that we've seen pretty often, where their hermetically sealed bubble has kind of trapped them in a logic hole that's put them at a
Right.
disadvantage, right? And in this case, it's one where they believe truly that anti-fascism is a threat to them personally.
They do.
And they believe it so fully and spread that thinking so fully that, their bubble may have precluded them from being able to see the reality, which is that,
Yeah.
most people aren't going to say I'm Antifa, but they're going to say I'm anti-fascist for sure.
The other thing about it is that you can criminalize thought crime here if you're
Oh,
doing
yeah.
what they're doing. If
All
they
day.
can make it very obvious that, we're going to prosecute anybody who's Antifa, and as we've seen in Atlanta with the Cop City prosecutions, they're prepared to find people who are participating in mutual aid and,
Yeah.
indict them for it. if the point is we want an amorphous enough boogeyman that we can indict anybody we want as being a part of it, who might have, at one point gone to, I don't know, Crime Think's website or something.
Right.
And they still obviously care at least a little bit about the optics of this, because otherwise they'd just start disappearing people off the street. But they care at least a little bit. So they're trying to make this narrative that sells soap for them, saying, hey, this is a terrorist organization with leaders here and there.
They're trying to create an environment. They're fostering an incredibly paranoid environment, right? Which is kind of the goal. Right. And that's like ultimately one of the goals for a terrorist state. But they're showing they have some real gaps. And as much as I want to believe that'll continue going forward, I don't know if it does. That NSPM 7 is really vague for a reason, right? And I think people like the conversation about the Antifa designation is missing. Like, really what that looks to aim at is the funding apparatus for their opposition party, right? So realistically, like, all of this too is feeding a secondary internal narrative within the government that'll be used and is already being used in some cases to justify legal action against fundraising for Democratic Party causes and candidates. And I'm no huge Democratic Party booster, but this is kind of a big deal.
What if they decided to cite whoever's running Act Blue for material support of terrorism?
Correct.
Right?
Exactly.
That's, I think, what you're thinking about there. And it's like, what then?
Yep.
At what point can you just chuck off all the money to your opposition
and that's
call it a day?
Seeing, right? Like, ultimately, the Antifa stuff has a bunch of different facets that it can be used for. And I think that's the big one that,
money
is being talked about, but not as much as the direct threat that it poses to like people on the ground theoretically.
Yeah.
And that one is a much bigger deal because they effectively Acorn Act Blue. I don't know what the Democratic Party does.
That's a problem. I mean, if they get this to work, then they can designate basically anybody they want. Act Blue being the fundraising arm of the Democratic Party and how it, doles out the money to various people, how everyone's using it to run their campaign donations on.
Yeah.
Take that out of the equation and things get far more complicated for any Democrat that wants to see electoral success in any potential election we have going forward.
Yes.
Because I really think you're right, and that this is the goal of a lot of this is to take the money away first.
Right.
They're doing a very systematic dismantling of not just like the institutions that can push back, but a lot of people.
Yes.
I mean, they've basically started going after the people that managed to piss him off in his first term. And I mean,
well, this is the beginning of the retribution phase, right? Like,
supposedly John Bolton's getting indicted on Monday.
Yep.
It's like, wow.
Yeah. I mean,
this is the retribution.
That's
You're right.
The thing. All of that is leading in one direction, right? And I think, going back to like the No Kings thing, that's a very interesting experiment for a lot of reasons right now, because there's no funding apparatus, because there's no national scale organization. This is something new, and frankly, like, the Democratic Party can't emulate it for a lot of reasons, but
no, they can't.
It may be another way, again, a new way of being able to kind of think about what we're going to have to do faced with the thing that we are now. And, because we have to go through this, right, that the only way out now is through, I think being able to look at things and understand that they may serve multiple purposes, both for good or bad, is really important. And like the No Kings rally on the 18th has some very, very big issues, I think, that anyone that's looked at this long will acknowledge. But they do have some ability to offer some room especially in light of this Antifa boogeyman
Mm-hmm.
national terror designation. Because again, it's absurd to say that, let's say 10 million people come out. It's really hard to say that 10 million people are Antifa and have people believe it when a lot of people will know someone who went, right? Like
Oh, yeah.
that's very hard to sell with enough people in the street because everyone will at least tangentially know someone.
Exactly. It's your
And
neighbors going.
yeah. And like
That's how it is here.
it's hard to sell even to some of the Fox News crowd that their 75-year-old neighbor in the retirement is a radical extremist
Yeah.
for going to a
So
rally.
you don't put that footage on TV. You
Yeah.
just don't because you can't. It's the same thing as we were talking about earlier with the frog. You cannot air the footage of the Department of Homeland Security leader pointing down like it's Fallujah and it's one guy in a pink Care Bear outfit or a chicken outfit.
Yeah.
It's like you can't air that footage. It's ridiculous. It makes your person look as ridiculous as they are. You can't air footage of senior citizens coming out of their homes. Basically, like, I can't make it to the protest, but man, fuck that guy.
Yeah.
This isn't good.
Well, and it's incoherent,
footage
right?
you
Like
deal
it's
with.
not something that works for their messaging, right? Like it'd be
Nope.
totally different if there were, 20 guys in black bloc in those images, right? Like you
Mhm.
can be a more effective form of black bloc wearing a frog uniform right now. And that's
Mhm.
kind of the same way I'm looking at this No Kings thing on the 18th is like if you are in a position where you are not a liberal, where you're more radical, maybe you're an anarchist or a communist, and you're looking at this and saying this is theater. Well, I tend to agree with you, but also there's this second part where it offers you the ability to go out and get your specific message to more people than
Yeah.
you may have ever been able to in your life. And for those groups, go be the guy or lady or whoever in a chicken suit at the No
Yeah.
Kings rally, handing out signs about things that you care about, but also different tactics that people can take. Do what you need to do as your specific group, but also understand you can use that to network in a way that you may never have otherwise had the opportunity. And a lot
Yeah.
of people right now are looking for answers and they're looking for ways that they feel they can help. And if you can help someone find an avenue that they're comfortable with to protest,
Yeah.
push back against fascism, you've done more than a lot of organizers ever have.
Exactly. You have potentially made a comrade for life in
Yeah.
that particular circumstance. And let me just ask this. I understand that this is not the ideal way to do things for probably most of the people
Yeah.
who are, but at some point, part of the reason we get so upset with groups like RevCom for their entryism is because entryism works in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
Entryism is a pretty good tactic. People wouldn't keep doing it otherwise. So maybe you do have a chance to do a little of that. Maybe you have a chance to talk to people that you didn't necessarily have a chance, like Karl said, to talk to before. You get your message out in front of a lot of people, who knows what can happen.
Right.
You get your personality that, hey, I'm not a boogeyman. I'm not this scary terrorist. I'm just some guy. I work at the library, that kind of thing.
Literally, though, right? Like one of the
Yeah.
most powerful things from the first round of these protests was seeing people in black bloc handing out candy and food and just having conversations because what it does is it
Fucking
literally
Patriot front guys do it.
it's a meme, right? Like in your head,
Yeah.
if you're in a protest, with let's say 30,000 people, and it's a majority, kind of more traditional, older crowd, whatever, and then you see a bunch of guys and gals and people just dressed up in full black bloc, but they're handing out Doritos bags and water and chatting
I
with
love it.
people.
I
That
love it.
incoherence and dissonance immediately is like, I have to know more, right? You're putting yourself in a better position to at least have conversations. And if nothing else, yeah, do a little entryism. Like bring people in if that's what you want to do. Because the goal now is to offer people spaces to imagine better, so we can
Yeah.
actually get through this and do the next hard thing, which is figuring out what and how we do the next part of this, whatever that is.
And we've got
For
some
the
hard
next
things to
point,
do.
we come down to the ground again.
Mm-hmm. And I think we've got some hard things to do, but I think at the same time, we're setting ourselves up for more success now with this current set of tactics. I mean, I want to say I'm very, very proud of how everybody who's had to deal with these people has handled it.
Yeah.
Just about. So
You're dealing with the Gestapo, and people have been doing it very well.
And in a way that really just, punches the narrative in the face that they're trying to sell you.
Well, exactly. And it does exactly what good counter, programming or agitprop should do, which is it literally counters the narrative, but it also, it heightens the contradiction, right? Like it makes it very clear. These people are fucking lying.
And you're not going to get a more contradictory image than the Secretary for Homeland Security standing on a building, looking out at the war zone and seeing one poor sap in a Temu costume out there protesting.
Literally.
It's amazing.
I mean, it's hard to sell on Fox News that these are dangerous, radical, insurgent terrorists when it's like a bunch of federal police service dudes firing pepper balls at the feet of a guy in a suit that's a frog next to a cow. And the cow's like playing with its udders in a really.
And then the guy runs around trying to spray chemical irritant of some sort up the frog's air shaft.
Yeah.
In a costume. It's like, wow, tell me you're scared without telling me you're scared. Literally. You're scared of an inflatable frog. What's wrong with you?
Well, and that's the thing. I think this also is really looking at how things went in 20 in Portland, right? The Federal Police Service, HSI, all these different groups, they were running a full-scale friggin' war against that city for a long time. And I think it must be really intimidating to them that people, A, aren't backing down, but B, they've come out and it's now just sport to fuck with them by like seeing how close you can get in an inflatable. Because if you're law enforcement, the scariest thing for law enforcement is when they can't see something, right? I would be very leery.
And they're going to have a hell of a time making an argument that these people should take off their masks when considering who the source is.
Right. And I mean, it's also very hard.
Not going to happen.
It's very hard to claim that a Temu frog has an AR-15.
I'm more scared of the guy with the, tactical outfit and the 511 pants and did you know you can buy ice patches on eBay really cheap right now?
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for all I know, that's what you did.
Yeah.
For all I know, that's who you are.
That's the one that's going to get
You went to Cabela's and got some ice patches from eBay.
That's going to get pressed in a tough part at some point, and people, we're going to get to that river when we get there. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, it lays bare so much of the hypocrisy, all of these other things, but you cannot effectually message against this. Not in a way that even bullshitting covers. And like, again, that goes to quote unquote Eric, the ex-Antifa member on Jesse Waters, right? Like, this is that same shit where it's like people are starting to notice the absurdity of the position facing. And, when they're literally using someone who appears to just be some random guy to trade things and make. I mean, truly, if this was any other situation, this would be a masterclass in how you get your ass nailed to the wall by the FCC for manipulation. Like,
but no,
it would.
That was back when we had an FCC, my friend.
Yeah, like when you've got your tile guy playing characters on your TV show to portray X, Y, and Z communities in different ways, you're kind of already losing. And now that people have noticed that, anytime they trot this dude out, we're going to know.
Yeah. Just look for the big old crow's feet that guy's got going. It's pretty easy to see.
Unbelievable. For a person who wears a mask in every
FBI
interview,
facial recognition specialist here.
They pick the wrong set of eyes.
But it's stuff like that that's actually making me feel reasonably good about where this might be going. There are glimmers, green shoots.
There are definitely glimmers,
hope.
And I think the best, what I'm seeing that's optimistic here from this is literally that people are rising to the moment, right? Like,
yeah,
the issue for I think a lot of us is that the highest level members of the government that are elected representatives who are supposedly in opposition have abdicated.
Right.
There is no argument to be made that the population has. If anything, the population's got more resolve today than they did last week and more than they did at the beginning of the summer. And I think that this kind of moment we're seeing with the frogs and with the unicorns and with the fucking Temu Teletubby puffies going out and all of this, is kind of a sign.
$24.99, man. Plus tariffs, I'm sure, but
right. And I mean, there are 100 other reasons going on, but I think some of this
Spirit,
too is people.
My God, it's Halloween season. If Spirit doesn't have that thing on the shelves next week, their shareholders should riot.
Legitimately, though, like that's going to be the number one Halloween costume in the country.
Yup. And I thought I was going as MF Doom. I might go as the Frog this time. This will be
honestly wear the mask over the Frog uniform. That would be right in the wheelhouse.
Yes, that's a signifier right there.
As an MF Doom fan, I feel like that would be
I think.
right on the correct side of things move. Actually, I think it'll be interesting though, because really, like, the other thing that's coming from this is people are finding joy in resistance, right? Like, as much as none of us want to be doing this, I think people are starting in those moments to see that, like, this isn't some just like super serious, guys in bulletproof vests protesting like it's right republic, protesting. This is like just people doing people stuff.
You can have fun. You can go out and be yourself. You don't need to put this in terms that sound super apocalyptic. You can mess with them.
In fact,
you can absolutely change that for them.
That's the move, in all seriousness. They want it to be apocalyptic in those terms, right? The reality is they're trying to enact some terrible stuff, but also, like, the absurdity works better. The shit posting in real life works better. Turning their power into a meme is incredibly important. And frankly, that is what saves you when you have to do other worse stuff, because you can go back and forth. And
exactly,
I think that's going to be the power now, right? Is we have to learn how to shift and apportion things.
Right. And I think we're getting there. I think we're learning that.
I think, this is all stuff we have to learn, and it takes time, and we're learning.
Mm-hmm.
That's the best outcome, right? It'd be a lot worse if we weren't.
So if that's what you're planning to do next weekend, planning to go do it on Saturday, have a good time. Enjoy yourself.
Yeah.
Get out there, maybe in some costume. Get out there and, some ideas in front of some neighbors. Ask your neighbors what they think of all of this. Ask your people at this protest what they think of all of this.
Literally, just
there's some communication opportunities here. It's really, think of it that way. It's like a communication opportunity with everybody around in your community.
Yep, exactly.
And take it that way. Work it that way.
Yeah, because that's a concrete, true step towards doing things better across the board. Even once we right the ship, that's a concrete step to making things better.